Let's welcome Peg Lugsik then.
Good evening. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. We were in New York earlier today. I have my son with me tonight. He's a petty officer in the Navy changing duty stations, so we were up doing something.
Thank you for the service.
He's now not going to speak to me for the rest of the day.
Good job, Mom.
I know, what are you going to do? Mothers do that. They are all used to it. Let me just tell you a little bit about me personally. I live in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. I've been married for 30 years to a lovely husband who teaches high school. I have 6 children. They are all girls except for 5. It's an IQ joke, guys. How fast did you get it? They range in age from 27, and the 27-year-old just got married, and the youngest is 15. I have an architect, a ballerina, a petty officer, an opera singer, a freshman in college, and a sophomore in high school. So we're a very eclectic house in my house. My original educational background, I was educated at Clarion, well then it was State College, now it's university. In special ed and elementary ed, I've taught everything from preschool through college, and I've taught both regular education and special education. I've worked both in Harrisburg and Washington, basically protecting the rights of families against government, both at the state and the federal levels, and I've been involved with a number of White Houses, starting with the Reagan administration, and then moving up from there, sometimes friendly, sometimes we'll use another adjective. I own a small business, and the latest thing I did was in 2008, I ran the campaign of the guy who ran against Jack Murtha. So I was involved in my own home district, and now, of course, I'm running for the United States Senate. What I want to talk to you about tonight is really about the country and about our direction. And I want you to think of America as a 3-legged stool. Can you picture that in your head? You're holding a stool, it's got 3 legs. The first thing you need to do is put the stool on the floor. The floor of this country has always been God. This is a country that acknowledges and has always acknowledged that there's an authority higher than the state. Now, any individual has the right to worship or not as they please. But the fundamental premise was that this is a nation that's founded upon a belief in the supremacy of God. Because if there is no creator, you're not endowed. If there's nothing above the state, you're just property. And one of the very first signs of a government that begins to encroach on individual liberty is an almost unreasonable hostility to anything religious. Right now in Florida, there's a principal and an athletic director who are being told that they will lose their pension and possibly go to jail because they had the audacity to pray at a school event. They said grace before the meal. They're being threatened with prison. Now, these are the same prisons that are letting murderers out because they're overcrowded. So we can make room for people who pray inside. That's an unreasonable hostility toward anything religious. And it is a change in the very floor of this nation. And it's a dangerous change. So when we talk about the direction that America is going, we need to understand that the conversation begins with an attempt by government, particularly at the federal level, to actually change the very floor of this nation and say there is nothing above the state. That is the first place that they need to meet resistance, is on giving away the floor. Now we're still holding our stool. Remember our little stool. Our stool has 3 legs. Those 3 legs are what our founders called our fundamental rights. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. You need all 3 legs, or the stool falls down. So point of resistance number 2 is to be able to fight and articulate and stand firmly for all 3 of the legs. The most fundamental of your rights is your right to life. Because if the government can tell you that you don't have a right to your own existence, you don't have any rights. That is your most fundamental, is your right to exist. If any government can take that away from you, you are just property. There is a movement today to say we only want to talk about money. We don't want to talk about those life issues. They're sort of divisive, you know, we don't want to go there. We just want to talk about wallets. Your wallet doesn't have any rights. You do, as a person. So if I don't protect your right to your own personhood, why would you ever trust that person with your wallet?
Yeah.
The second of your fundamental rights is your right to liberty. Now, liberty has a couple of pieces to it. The first part of liberty is that there has to be a law underpinning it, and every single person has to be exactly equal in the eyes of the law. That's why things like illegal immigration are so dangerous, because what they say is the law applies to this person differently than it applies to that person. If the law does not apply equally, then you have anarchy, and anarchy and liberty can never exist together. One will always destroy the other. It isn't we don't like, we don't want, it's that you cannot have a society that doesn't begin with law, or you don't have a society. So liberty begins with that fundamental premise. Now, it moves on to say that for us to enjoy liberty, we have to come together as a nation. That part is sovereignty. That America comes together. We are a society that fits together, in which individual rights are protected, and we agree about those things. If we give away our sovereignty, we give away the right to defend liberty and life and property. It is why the efforts to undermine the American Constitution are so deadly. The American Constitution is very unique in world governments because it doesn't begin and end with government. It begins and ends with the people.
Yes.
And so if we do not protect our sovereignty, we cannot protect our Constitution, which means we cannot protect our individual rights. It's a kind of like a domino effect. That's why sovereignty is so important. America really is exceptional because it talks about the person as the center. It talks about the family as the building block of society, and it limits the role of government. And the Constitution builds that together for us. If we eliminate our sovereignty, we give all those pieces away. That's why sovereignty is such an important part of liberty. Now, the third little piece is your individual liberty. That's things like self-defense. That's your right to bear arms. That says you have a right to defend your life and your property from crime and from tyranny.
Yes.
Because tyranny is really a crime when you think
Yeah.
about it. They're connected.
Yeah.
So each of those pieces, that we need law, then we need sovereignty, then we need individual rights to protect, all fit together to defend liberty. And you can't give any of those pieces away. Now, the third little leg of our stool is the pursuit of happiness. Now, you know, it's kind of funny, they didn't say the guarantee of happiness. They said you could go for it. They didn't guarantee you'd get it. But in today's world, we're seeing that definition sort of turned upside down. That instead of having the right to strive, to work, to look for, and then have the innovation and the initiative and the perseverance to go for your dreams, somehow you should just be happy, magically. And if that means that the government can take money from people who earn it and give it to people who want it, Washington says that's okay. It's not okay. That's theft.
Yeah.
That is not compassion. That is not generosity. That's stealing.
Yes.
That's taking from American citizens who built the country and giving it to those who don't want to. It's interesting, in all the debates, I hear often, well, but, you know, people need help.
What's the purpose?
Okay.
Right.
It is true that people need help. That does not mean that government is the agency who should help them.
Right.
They are not equivalent statements.